The first time I came to Iceland, I rented a car because I thought that was the ultimate freedom, and at first, it really felt like the perfect idea. Iceland looks like the dream road trip country: empty roads, waterfalls everywhere, black sand beaches, volcanic landscapes, horses in the middle of nowhere, and cinematic views that make you want to stop every 5 minutes. But after actually driving there myself, I realized something most first-time visitors don't fully understand before they arrive. Iceland is beautiful, but driving in Iceland can slowly turn from a dream road trip into a full-time job. You are not just enjoying the landscape. You are checking the road, the wind, the ice, the gravel, the parking, the fuel, the weather forecast, and the next safe stop. So when I came back to Iceland 4 years later, I made the opposite decision. This time, I did not rent a car. And honestly, that one decision changed the whole experience. This Iceland trip came right after an intense 8-day journey across Scotland. We had rented a car there and drove around 1,200 kilometers through the Highlands, the Isle of Skye, narrow roads, small villages, dramatic viewpoints, rainy landscapes, and constantly changing weather. Scotland was incredible, but by the end of that road trip, I was genuinely exhausted. My body was tired from driving, but more than that, my mind was tired from planning every route, checking every stop, calculating every distance, and making decisions all day. And when you arrive in Iceland already tired, the last thing you want is another demanding road trip in one of the most unpredictable countries in the world. That was the moment I remembered my first Iceland trip. I remember how exciting the rental car idea felt before the trip, and how much energy it actually took during the trip. So this time, I wanted to experience Iceland in a smarter, calmer, and more comfortable way. On YouTube, Instagram, and travel blogs, Iceland often looks like the easiest road trip in the world. You rent a car, follow Google Maps, stop at waterfalls, take beautiful photos, and come back with the perfect Iceland travel story. But the reality can be very different. Icelandic weather can change incredibly fast. One moment the road feels calm, and a few minutes later you can face strong wind, rain, fog, snow, slippery surfaces, or low visibility. Even if you are not traveling in deep winter, the conditions can still surprise you. And in Iceland, the landscape is so open that wind becomes part of the driving experience. You are not only driving from one attraction to another, you are constantly asking yourself, is this road safe? Should we continue? Is the next stop worth it in this weather? Where can we park? Do we have enough fuel? Is this road suitable for a normal car? Do we need a 4-wheel drive? These questions may sound small, but when they repeat all day, they take energy away from the trip. Another thing many visitors underestimate is the real cost of renting a car in Iceland. At first, the rental price may look acceptable, especially if you compare it with other expensive destinations. But then, the hidden costs begin. You add insurance, gravel protection, wind damage protection, fuel, parking, possible extra driver fees, and sometimes the need for a better vehicle depending on your season and route. Iceland is already an expensive country, so the numbers can grow very quickly. And the important part is this: even after paying all that money, you are still responsible for everything. You are the driver, the navigator, the planner, the safety manager, and the person who has to stay focused while everyone else watches the view. This is where the cheap rental car idea can slowly become much more expensive, not only financially but mentally. Before this trip, I knew I still wanted flexibility. I did not want a huge bus tour where 40 or 50 people get off at the same time, take the same photos, and return to the bus, because the schedule has to move on. I wanted comfort, but I also wanted freedom. I wanted to stop when the light was beautiful, stay longer when a place felt special, and avoid feeling rushed in one of the most cinematic countries on earth. That is how I found GlaciGo, a private Iceland day tour company. Before arriving, I spoke with Mr. Hamid from GlaciGo, and we planned the places I wanted to visit. This was important because it did not feel like I was buying a standard package. It felt more like building an Iceland route around my own travel style. After spending my first day exploring Reykjavik, we spent the next 2 days with Hamid, traveling the Golden Circle and the South Coast in a Toyota RAV4, covering around 800 kilometers in total. Our first route with GlaciGo was the Golden Circle, one of the most popular day trips from Reykjavik. Of course, we visited the famous stops, Thingvellir National Park, Gullfoss Waterfall and the Geysir geothermal area. These are places almost every first-time visitor wants to see, and they absolutely deserve that attention. Thingvellir feels historic and powerful, Gullfoss feels wild and dramatic, and Geysir is one of those places where Iceland reminds you that the earth is alive beneath your feet. But what made the day memorable was not only the famous landmarks. Because it was a private tour, we also had time for places like Brúarfoss, Faxafoss, a farm stop, and quiet moments with free horses in nature. At Brúarfoss, especially, the atmosphere felt completely different from the bigger stops. It was quieter, softer, and more intimate, the kind of place where you don't just arrive, take a photo, and leave. You slow down for a moment, and that was exactly the difference. We were not just collecting locations, we were actually spending time with them. This was the moment I really understood why this decision mattered. The biggest difference between renting a car and taking a private tour was simple. I could finally watch Iceland. I was not checking the map. I was not thinking about road conditions. I was not worrying about parking. I was not calculating whether we had enough time before sunset. I was just looking out the window as the landscape changed again and again. Lava fields, mountains, rivers, horses, waterfalls, clouds, empty roads, and those wide Icelandic skies. And in Iceland, this is not a small detail. The road itself is part of the experience. Sometimes, the most beautiful moments are not at the official stops. They are between the stops, when the light changes, the mountains appear, or a group of Icelandic horses suddenly turns the whole scene into a painting. When you are driving, you miss a lot of that. On the second day, we explored the south coast, and for me, this is where Iceland becomes truly wild. We visited Skogafoss, Seljalandsfoss, Kvörnufoss, Dyrhólaey, Reynisfjara, Black Sand Beach, Vik, and traditional turf houses. This route is one of the most cinematic drives in Iceland, but it is also one of the best examples of why driving here can be demanding. The weather changed several times during the day. At one moment it felt calm, then the wind picked up, then the rain arrived, then the sky opened again, and suddenly the whole landscape looked different. If I had been driving myself, I know part of my mind would have been busy with the road and the timing. But this time, Hamid knew the route, the parking areas, the weather rhythm, and the best way to adjust the day. That allowed me to focus on the waterfalls, the black sand, the cliffs, the waves, and the feeling of being somewhere completely different from anywhere else in the world. One of the places that best explains Iceland is Reynisfjara Black Sand Beach. It is incredibly beautiful, but it also feels serious. The black sand, the basalt columns, the cliffs, the Atlantic waves, the wind, and the dramatic sky all come together in a way that feels almost unreal. But at the same time, you understand that Iceland is not just a pretty background for photos. Nature here has power. It demands attention. And that is exactly why I believe many travelers should think carefully before deciding to drive everywhere themselves. Iceland is not difficult because it lacks beauty. It is difficult because the beauty comes with conditions. Weather, distance, safety, timing, and energy all matter. Having someone experienced handle the difficult parts allowed me to enjoy the beautiful parts more deeply. During those 2 days, we saw many large tour groups. Sometimes a big bus would arrive, dozens of people would step out, everyone would walk to the same viewpoint, take photos quickly, and then return to the bus because the schedule had to continue. To be fair, bus tours can be a good option, especially if you are traveling on a tighter budget. But every time I saw those groups, I understood the value of a private tour more clearly. We could decide how long to stay, we could stop for small photo moments, we could ask questions, we could change the rhythm of the day. There was no pressure, no crowd, no feeling of being part of a mass itinerary. In a country like Iceland, where the landscape is emotional, dramatic, and constantly changing, that flexibility does not feel like a luxury. It feels like a better way to experience the country. What I appreciated about GlaciGo was that the experience did not feel like someone was trying to sell me Iceland. Iceland does not need to be sold. The waterfalls, the mountains, the horses, the beaches, the volcanoes, and the landscapes are already enough. What GlaciGo added was comfort, safety, flexibility, and local knowledge. Hamid helped us understand the places we visited, answered our questions, adjusted the route when needed, and made the whole experience feel smooth from beginning to end. And maybe the best part was this: I never felt like I was being moved around. I felt like the day was moving with us. For me, the real value was not only having a car and a driver. The real value was mental freedom. I did not have to manage the logistics. I did not have to make every safety decision. I did not have to think about the next parking area, the next road, or the next timing issue. I could simply experience Iceland. Now, I do not want to say that nobody should rent a car in Iceland. That would not be fair. If you are an experienced driver, if you are comfortable with changing weather, if you know how to check road conditions, if you enjoy long-distance driving, and if you really want full independence, renting a car can still be a great option, especially in summer. With more daylight and better conditions, a self-drive Iceland itinerary can be amazing. But you need to be honest with yourself. Rent a car if you are confident driving in unpredictable weather, if you have enough time to be flexible, if you are ready to manage road conditions, insurance, fuel, parking, and possible changes in your plan. But if this is your first time in Iceland, if your trip is short, if you are traveling outside the easiest summer months, or if you simply want a more relaxed experience, then daily tours or private day trips from Reykjavik may be a much smarter choice. If you only have 3 or 4 days in Iceland, staying in Reykjavik and doing day trips can make a lot of sense. You can explore the city, then visit the Golden Circle, the South Coast, the Blue Lagoon, glacier lagoons, waterfalls, black sand beaches, or even Northern Lights locations without managing every detail yourself. This is especially useful if you are traveling after another long trip, visiting outside the easiest summer months, traveling with family, or simply wanting a more comfortable experience. And if you do not like the idea of a large bus tour, a private tour gives you a middle ground. You get the comfort and safety of having someone experienced handle the driving, but you still keep the flexibility of your own rhythm. For me, that was exactly what I needed on this trip. After experiencing Iceland both ways, first with a rental car and then with GlaciGo on private day tours, I can honestly say that this second trip felt much more enjoyable. Maybe it was because I had already learned from my first mistake. Maybe it was because I arrived tired after Scotland. Or maybe it was simply because Iceland is a country where having someone else handle the difficult parts allows you to enjoy the beautiful parts more deeply. In 2 days, we covered around 800 kilometers, visited the Golden Circle and the South Coast, saw famous landmarks and hidden gems, stopped at places large groups usually skip, and I never had to worry about road conditions, parking, timing, or navigation. That made a huge difference. Iceland is one of the most spectacular countries I have ever visited, but it is not always the easiest, and sometimes the smartest travel decision is not doing everything yourself. If you are planning your first trip to Iceland, I hope this video helps you make a better decision than I did on my first visit. Renting a car may sound like the ultimate Iceland adventure, and for some travelers it can be. But before you book that rental car, think about the real cost, the weather, the road conditions, the driving distances, your energy level, and the kind of trip you actually want to have. For me, exploring Iceland with GlaciGo turned what could have been another tiring road trip into a smooth, cinematic, and unforgettable experience. Because in Iceland, the goal is not to prove that you can drive everywhere. The goal is to actually feel the country. So if Iceland is on your travel list, choose the style that lets you truly enjoy it, not just survive the itinerary. And if you found this video helpful, subscribe to Alpgalip Travels for more honest travel guides, real costs, itineraries, and personal travel experiences from around the world.